What's up? I'm Sid and welcome to Savvy Sentient. In today's video, we're going to be discussing my spiritual journey. Okay, before we get into the video, you already know I'm going to need you to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you click the bell so you're notified whenever a new video is released. And please, make sure you leave a like to put some respect on the YouTube algorithm. Tampoy, messy. And let's get into the video. So I really felt like this video was a very important video to share. I was actually on the fence for a little while about whether or not I was going to share it because it is so deeply personal. Now, because it is so deeply personal, there's going to be some names that are changed, some situations that are omitted just to protect the innocent and the not so innocent, and just my privacy as a whole. So in the interest of keeping this video as short as possible, I do have some key points that I wanted to share with you all. But come on, let's get into the video. All right, so the beginning of this journey, I would say, probably started somewhere around the end of 2017. At this time, I am a married lady, okay? Happily married for the most part. We had our ups and downs like most married people. However, happy, okay? But there was a certain pull, something inside of me that made me question if this was it. Like, this is the whole life right here. This is what we're doing from now into eternity. And there was something that was making me wonder if maybe I had jumped in too soon. But I'm like, this is just something that young people feel when they get married. I didn't really think much of it. However, the universe soon came in and changed everything. All right. In tarot, this is what we call the tower. Yeah, the tower came in and shook shit up for me. All right, so this is how that happens. So my spouse, very hard worker, worked their way through the ranks. We're going to call them D. D worked their way through the ranks into a position of restaurant management at one of the nicer restaurants in Atlanta. And I was very proud of that. Always had that drive. Even when we first met, D wasn't necessarily doing the jobs that I thought were deserving of D's talent. However, as a wife, I motivated D to want more, to get more, to have more. And that's exactly what D did. So at this point, D is working their ass off, okay? Being everything to this restaurant and wasn't getting paid what a restaurant manager should in this part of town, doing as much work as they're doing. And so I encouraged D to ask for a raise because it was deserved. So D does this. They have their meeting. The owner of the restaurant decides that asking for the standard in the industry was just too much to ask. Oh no, that's just too much to ask. And because you're probably not going to stay anyway, let's go ahead and part ways, is how the restaurant's owner responded. So of course, this was a devastating blow for D. I was there to support, as a wife should be. And since we were already considering moving to Philadelphia, which is where my family is from, and just outside of Philadelphia is where Dee's family is from, I'm like, this is our perfect opportunity. You want to go and make sure your dad is good. I want to be closer to my dad and to all of my cousins. Let's do it. You go up there, you find a job, and I'll stay here and I'll hold it down. When you're ready, let me know. I'll pack everything up. Let's do it. So that's what D does. Goes out there, interviews, whatever. Turns out having a hard time finding a job for a couple of reasons. Not the resume, definitely not the resume, but just how some of the people in the restaurant industry in Philadelphia, which I later found out were kind of prevented D from the same opportunities that D would have here in Atlanta. So I'm like seeing like it's a struggle, and it's getting to the point where D is starting to distance themselves from me, and I'm knowing the things that we've been through, the things that we've held each other down through, the things that people didn't know about that we were going through, just as a team trying to hold each other up. I'm knowing like what's going on. I'm knowing what's going on mentally, and I'm like, all right, they need me. I think they need me. So, before I decide to drop everything and just go, I try to communicate, and I'm like, well, what's going on, and like what's taking so long, and what kind of things are you encountering? Like, I'm really getting no answers. And it gets to a point where D is starting to become more distant, ignoring my phone calls, ignoring my texts. Even when I do get some type of response, it's met with an attitude, with anger, with confrontation. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck did I do? Like, really not understanding what is the cause of all of this. And even to this day, I have no answers as to why D was acting this way. There has been speculation. I can't confirm or deny any accusations. It wasn't until recently, which is years after, that I even had suspicions, because D has always been loyal for as far as I know. Either really loyal or really sneaky as fuck and really good at it. One or the other. But I've never had any suspicions of like indiscretions, infidelity in the marriage. Like I said, we were pretty solid. We had our little spats, but we were pretty solid as a married couple. But yeah, started being confrontational, not answering the phone, to the point where like I'm calling and I'm asking for money for bills, and like letting D know like I'm needing help out here. My job that I had was doing something mad shady. One of the managers was actually taking money from the bartenders who had been there and paying the bartenders that he hired, who were trash. Trash, the worst. But just to make sure that they stayed. So my checks going from like $2,000 every 2 weeks to $800 for 2 weeks. $400 for two. Like, make it make sense, way. So at that point, I'm already like up to here with my job. And I'm talking to my friends about what's going on. I'm having anxiety attacks. That's very important to know for the future. I didn't know how important that was until later on. But I'm having anxiety attacks because I'm just like so overwhelmed. And my partner is suddenly not my partner. My partner has disappeared. So now I'm just out here in Atlanta hustling, working jobs that I never would even dream of working. Driving Uber. Got a new truck, hustled so hard, got a new truck, started driving Uber, like was trying to make ends meet. But eventually I'm seeing that my partner is still struggling in Philadelphia, and I'm talking to my friends about it, and I'm like, really, I think they need me. And I just decide, like, fuck this job. And I just go. I pack up all my stuff and I just go. Now, it wasn't that abrupt. I did go to Philadelphia a week or so prior and interview. Had mad interviews, got hired, and found a spot, found a place. It was just a little room for rent situation until me and my partner could, get things squared away. But once I get there, like I said, here go the universe with the tower, just throwing the curveballs at me. Once I get there, y'all, the place that I had set up to stay at fell through. I had a dog. It was supposed to be pet friendly. Once I get there, settle in, all of a sudden it's not pet friendly. Real shady. Like, whatever. But they ended up giving me my full amount of my money back. I stayed there for like 2 days. And then so I just dipped. So that night that I left, I had nowhere else to go. I hit the red roof. I didn't want to inconvenience anybody. So I hit the red roof in where pets were accepted. And me and Spanky, we just chilled at the red roof. That night, I called my spouse and let my spouse know, this is where I'm at. Matter of fact, it's not too far from your job. Come to find out, ended up getting a job at Amazon. Okay. So it wasn't too far from where D was working. So I'm like, this is where I'm at. Come see me. What's up? Like, come be with your wife. No, never came. Never responded. When I did finally talk to D, it was, my phone was dead. Like, bro, your phone was dead? Okay. But you're in your car now. You got a car charger. Like, when you leave work, what's the first thing you do if your phone dies at work? You charge that bitch. So, miss me. So, this just kept happening. After the red roof, I go to the Airbnb. We do finally link up. It results in an argument. Okay. It gets to the point where I'm like considering divorce because, like, I did all of this for you, for us, and here I am, like, basically pillar into posting right now. Like, you didn't come together with your wife and try to figure things out. You keep avoiding me even when I'm in your presence, even when I'm in the city with you. Like, make it make sense. So eventually money runs low. Like, I did have a job. I was working this job. But training pay is training pay. It's not shit. And it certainly wasn't enough, to take care of my car note and all these other things that I need to take care of and find somewhere to stay. And I'm thinking when I get out here, my partner is going to help me. Silly me, because my partner didn't help me when I was in Atlanta. Fuck was I thinking? So what ends up happening is I have to live in my car. That's where we end up, with me living in my car. Okay. Whole married woman out here living in my car in the parking lot of a Walmart in Philadelphia, the one on Columbus in front of the water. Right. So D knows this. We've discussed this. We still have bills as I'm living in my car. I'm contacting D. D sends me little to no money. I'm not even going to say how much. But it's not enough. And being an empath and being in love as an empath, my primary concern, even with the situation that I was in, living in my car with my dog, y'all, being in that situation, my concern was still about Dee's well-being. Because according to Dee, the reason why I wasn't getting any help is because they were also in the same situation, living in their car. But you have a family with a house not too far away. You have friends that you went to high school with not too far away. Granted, y'all might be thinking, oh, don't you have the same thing? That's why you moved there. That's why you... Bruh, I contacted my family. Certain members of my family. I ain't gonna get into it too much, but what I will say is everybody got their own shit. So when people could not help or refused to help or whatever their situation was, I didn't take it personal because everybody got their own shit. And that's just something that you gotta understand. And that is something that I understood. But at the end of the day, I promised my whole life to a person in this world. And this person wasn't living up to the vows at this point. So one night, my car ends up cutting off in this parking lot. Okay, I'm like sleeping every night with like my heat on, depending on the weather. It be hot and cold. It was like almost winter, not quite there yet in the fall. So some nights was good, some nights was cold as fuck. So car cuts off. I call D. D actually does pull up for me. D actually does show up. D jumps my car with the piece of shit truck that D bought while I was still in Atlanta, and without even talking to me about it, jumps this car with the piece of shit truck that they bought, and got my car running again, whatever. So I let it run, of course. But of course, we couldn't just talk about what was going on. It had to be an argument because ever since D left, it's been nothing but arguments. The whole time. Even with your wife in this situation, you want to argue. There was no solution. There was no, let's get a room, let's get you up out of here. Like, there's no concern for my well-being whatsoever. Now, this is very perplexing because anybody who knew us as a couple knew that D was extremely protective of me. Even to the point of being overprotective. Some people probably thought D was abusive. Wasn't, ever. But that's just how protective D was of me. So to see this whole entire person just flip, like I had no idea who the fuck I was married to anymore. And it was that night after D pulled off and left me in the parking lot, but did leave me the jumper cables. Thanks, D. But it was that night that I realized I cannot continue to care. I cannot continue to love. I cannot continue to be concerned for someone who has no concern for me. And it was at that night that I realized that this marriage was over. Like, there's no coming back from this. And it was that night that I just was like, all right, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this work? Because I had every intention of staying in Philadelphia and just getting it on my own, making my own way, getting my own spot, and then getting my divorce. So what ends up happening is I reached out to a friend. This is somebody who I knew from Atlanta from the beginning of me and Dee's relationship. This is also somebody who I had a lot of chemistry with, to the point that people were thinking that we were messing around. We were not. We never did. However, I thought this was somebody I could rely on. Considering that I knew my marriage was over, we did meander into the zone of of relationship talk. So I will be fully transparent about that. But long story short, what ends up happening is this person convinces me to just go back to Atlanta. Upon talking to my closest friends who actually snapped me out of caring and putting so much effort into being concerned about D, upon talking to them, everyone decided that it was probably in my best interest to just say, forget it, and go back to Atlanta. And so that's what I did. Upon coming back to Atlanta, I was just living in the Motel 6, hustling up money every day for Uber, for rent, and just trying to make ends meet until eventually one of my homeboys was like, you can come stay with me, and we worked out an agreement, whatever. This person who I was dating, I don't want to get into it too much about them, but they're very toxic, very predatory. They saw that I was in a situation where they see me as a victim, a target, which is something I've never seen myself as. I've been through a lot of hard situations and I just thug it out. But that's how they saw me. They saw me as weak and helpless, and they tried to take advantage of how I was feeling. That turned into about a year of on and off relationship. And it was very toxic. But in going through all the cycles with this person, I eventually was able to awaken. That was a part of my awakening process. Okay. If you are in a situation similar to this, or if it's not similar, if just internally you're feeling like depressed, in darkness, and just betrayed by life, I want you to know that it is for your greatest good. It is for a higher purpose, and it's going to make you stronger. This situation was put before me for a reason. Everything that I endured was for a reason. Now that I've lived through all of that, I have become a more enlightened person. I see people more clearly. I lead with my intuition. And that's why I said that those anxiety attacks were important. There were several situations where this toxic person put me in, where my intuition was going crazy in the form of anxiety. And every single time that I felt like something wasn't right, every single time that anxiety struck, it absolutely wasn't right. Absolutely, whatever I thought was going on was exactly what was going on. And that, I guess, trauma, I could say, kind of made me more sensitive intuitively. So now I just be feeling shit, okay? I just be knowing when things ain't right. Like, I've always been very intuitive, but these situations have just like fine-tuned my intuition. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not mad at D. Because whatever D was going through is what D was going through and what D was meant to go through. I'm not mad at this other toxic human because that's just who they are. And I'm not mad at my family because, like I said, everybody has their shit. And they got to deal with their own shit. And who am I to bring my shit to their door? So I'm not mad at anybody who could have helped because it wasn't meant for them to help. Okay? All of this brought me to where I am now. I lost myself in my marriage. I had more concern for my spouse than I had for myself. And instead of taking the time to heal from my marriage, I dove into another situation where I was able to be manipulated and taken advantage of by a predator. Okay? But after several cycles, I learned to know myself again. I was brought back to a place where I was introduced to me again. The self-love that was produced from the universe bringing me to my lowest point, the growth, the understanding that was brought to me by the universe bringing me to my lowest point is exactly what it took to make me see me again, to make me get in touch with me again. And since then, I have been growing my gifts, growing my intuition, exploring new gifts, becoming a whole force out here, a more powerful being out here. All of this was for my greatest good. So if you are someone who is going through any of this, whether the situation is similar or not, if you are at a low point, if you're at a point where you're questioning everything, if you feel like your whole life was shaken up, I just want you to know that it was for your highest good. To grow, you got to be uncomfortable. Where I was at in my marriage, I was comfortable and I was stagnant and I was completely out of touch with who the hell I was. And that is not in alignment with my purpose. And it is because of everything that the universe sent me through that I am now in alignment with my purpose. So I don't ever want you to doubt what you're going through. I want you to embrace it. I want you to surrender to it and accept it. And I want you to know that you're coming up out of this a whole beast, like a monster. You are going to be an amazing force as well when all of this is over. And that's that on that. Okay? So if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me. I'll put my email in my link down below. If you just want to talk, I'm on all social media, even TikTok reluctantly. But if you need somebody, you could definitely talk to me. There's several groups out here, spiritual groups that you can lean on, meet new people who are sharing your very same experience. Just don't think that this is just a stroke of bad luck for you. There's several thousands of people in this world going through the same thing. Yeah. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. If you need me, I'm around, okay? I'm accessible. So you can definitely reach out to me through email, through any social media. I'm here. All right, so I just wanted to share that story now at the end of 2020, because I'm going to leave it here and leave everybody in the story with the exception of friends and family here in 2020, and move into this new year full of love, full of light, and ready to fuck some shit up in 2021. So stay tuned. I appreciate y'all for watching. Again, like, share, and subscribe, and I will definitely see y'all in the next video. Thank y'all so much for watching.